Set this up. Okay. Wawa family. What's going on? Today, hey Dilly, you just caught me too. You know, it's so funny. I was messing around playing with the options and settings, and I scheduled myself for a live and didn't even know it. So then I came back to look at it, and I was like, I was gonna delete it. And I'm like, yeah, I might as well just flow and share my story. I guess maybe it's meant to be. But yeah, I wanted to have some recordings live, so this is what we're doing. I'm gonna be sharing my experience today, um, and encounter with the elementals. At least the first part of it, because you know there's gonna be more parts. There's always more parts. It's never just one thing. But yeah, you know, it's so funny because growing up, I used to watch like all the Disney movies and stuff like that. Like I grew up watching Disney movies, and we had the hot box. We had the hot box growing up, so we had all the channels. Um, we had all the channels for free, so it was like the best ever. And I remember watching like the Little Mermaid, and seeing Tinkerbell, the genies, just all of the mystical creatures and whatnot in the different fairy tales, gnomes. And I knew they were real. Like, there was nothing fake about that. Like, from the beginning, I knew that they existed. And I knew that I would also see one, you know? And it's so interesting because when we're children, just reminiscing back when we're in that state of being, when we're children and we're so innocent, there's so much that we actually know naturally. And I look at my children now and how they are, and the things that they express to me, how much they truly know and transmit. And I can see why it's such an important part of our development, the child part. But nonetheless, I was one of those children who believed in mermaids and fairies from the beginning, and I believed it with my whole entire essence. There was never a shadow of a doubt that they existed. I knew, like I knew, like I knew. And I was 8 years old, and I was at an amusement park with my family, my mother, my younger brother, and younger sister. My brother hates when I tell this story. My younger brother can't stand it because he's like, "Why are you telling people about this link?" But when I was 8, he was 6. We were at an amusement park. It was Six Flags, but back in the day, it was before Six Flags, so it was called Riverside before Six Flags bought it. And him and I were on this ride called the Black Widow, and we were at the very last end. And I remember it was nighttime, and something just told me to look up. And I look up to my left, and I saw clear as day a fairy that was like this big, right above me, and was very bright, bright and translucent. Like you could see through, like the skin wasn't solid. And yet the humanoid figure and form was very clear. I remember looking to the right to tell my brother, and he was already looking at it. Like I didn't have to tell him anything. He was looking at it at the same time. So at that point, him and I both did one of these. Like we both looked at each other and we're like, did you see it? Like are you looking at what I'm looking at? And we knew, we both was like, it's a fairy. We were so excited, and the ride started, and we went on the roller coaster. By the time we came back, it was gone. But we got out of off the ride and ran looking for my mother. Like we just ran and started just looking for my mom, saw her and was like, Mom, we saw a fairy. We were just screaming up and down, letting her know, like, we saw a fairy. And my mom looked at us and started celebrating with us. Like, she was so excited too. She was like, yeah, like you found a fairy, you saw a fairy. Like she took my hand and was like, yeah, like that was a rite of passage, that we saw the fairy. So she 100% believed in stuff like that. So it was never a question of whether, what we saw was real or not. That was something that my mom already believed in and, knew existed, because she had her own encounters as well with elementals. So it was at that very moment, though, that I knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was much more to life than what was being presented. In fact, it wasn't then that I knew, because I already knew that there was more to life than was what was being presented, but it was one of like the first receipts that that I actually had for myself, that okay, life, there is more than life, and this stuff really does exist. These other beings really truly do exist. So it kept me hopeful. It kept me open to different aspects of life. And no matter what I went through, and I went through some really tough stuff, really, really tough, dark stuff, I always knew there was always a light at the end of the tunnel. Like that, there was just, no matter what I went through in life, there's something left there. There's something magical left to seek that is grander than what it is that I was experiencing. And it kept me going and motivated me to keep going. Needless to say. Fast forward into adulthood, and I'm just going to skip a whole bunch of stuff that happened in between there. I'm just going to go straight into adulthood. Fast forward into adulthood. I'm now living in upstate New York, and that was really truly a magical place. I lived in the middle of the woods, 29 acres of just pure woods and land. The house was on 1 acre that was, cleared. And that's when my relationship with the elementals really truly began to deepen on another level, on a higher level. I began to build a relationship and reestablish a relationship with the elementals. And they really had me put in work, in the sense of, I did a lot of cleaning up. They love it when you do a lot of cleaning. They're not really trusting to just reveal themselves to humans. Like, you really have to kind of like prove to them that, through your frequency, for one, obviously, but that you're trustworthy and not going to try to capture them and, exploit them in a museum like others do. they really do love it when we clean up the parks and pick up trash and take care of the animals when they're hurt, or just being mindful and respectful of their dwelling, their environment, the space, our sacred space. They live on a higher frequency. So, for you to see them, you have to increase your frequency as well, elevate your frequency. However, thanks to the collective consciousness, yeah, everyone's kind of starting to see them already, because collectively we're raising the frequency. So, it's kind of inevitable. Everybody's already starting to see a lot more than what they couldn't, they could before. But I did put in a lot of work. Once I was 8 months pregnant and was deep in those woods, digging out trash that previous owners dug in the ground. Like, instead of throwing it away in the garbage, they actually dug trash in the ground. Tires, ropes, big thick ropes. Like, they were butchering animals. They were hunters and were butchering animals and stuff. So there was like a lot of that. And I had to dig it out of the ground and drag it out into the dumpster, go back and forth. And 8 months pregnant in the summertime, that was rough, but I earned my stripes, and they rewarded me with these beautiful hawk feathers that they left for me nearby a tree. And I kept on. I kept building a relationship with them. Sometimes I would leave like a little mini cup of oats, and like dry oats with elderberries in it. And I would put it in a location where I knew that they would get it. And no lie, I would see their little footprints. Like, yeah, they would actually, they'll eat it, but I would see their little itty bitty footprints around the area. It's so freaking cute. I used to tell my son, I have a son, he's 18 years old. He'll be 19 this in a couple of months. And I used to tell my son about my fairy experience when I was a child. And I used to tell him since he was a little kid. And he used to believe me up until, he hit that like little teenage, preteen age where it's like, it's not a cool story anymore. And not that he thought I was lying, but thought perhaps maybe I was mistaking it for something else. And one night, we went to go for a ride. I was going to go take him to Walmart to go buy a few things. And we got in the car. And before I started the vehicle, I hit the headlights. And there were 4 different fairies clinging onto the side of my house by my window, my room, my bedroom window, like Spider-Man. Like, they were literally clinging onto the side of the house like Spider-Man, and freaked out when I flashed the lights on them, and they started to freaking fly like in circles. Like, they were just freaking out. So they started to fly in circles, except for I was extremely excited. Okay. And my frequency went out of this world up high. I started to like scream like to myself, like, everybody who knows me knows when I get to that point, I like completely shift out. Like, that's when everyone's like, calm down, calm down, calm down, because I will completely shift out. And I did one of those. When I did that, I captured them. My frequency captured them. My frequency and vibration captured them. So they were like going in circles, but they were stuck. Like, they couldn't go anywhere else. Meanwhile, my son, my 18-year-old son, who was 15, 16 at the time, was in complete and total shock. Like this was him the whole time. Like that was his facial expression the entire time. Meanwhile, I'm like, oh my god, and he's like, I had to leave so that they can be unstuck. Do you have a fairy aspect? Yeah, I do have a fairy aspect. I do. I have a fairy aspect, and a dragon aspect, and a mermaid aspect, really an elemental aspect, just in all kind of shapes and forms. But it's funny that you asked me that, because really one of those aspects is another aspect of me visiting me. A lot of times it's like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's us visiting us. That's right, family. Sometimes some of those people, some of those beings you see in those starships are you, other versions of you visiting you and seeing you. But it's literally facts. That moment, my son was like, he couldn't believe it. He was like, those are fairies. Like they really truly do exist. My son was a non-believer up until that point. He's I don't force my children to have the same spiritual views as me. I went through that lesson as a mom, enforcing this and that. I'm not saying I never did. uh I had my moment where I did enforce, we need to do this and do that, and um but I did honor his choice when he expressed to me that he wasn't agreeing to what I was agreeing to, and so I respectfully let him be. But nonetheless, he was heading towards more of an atheist path, where it was like he didn't really believe much in anything, and I just kind of let him be. But when he saw that, he was like, "Oh no, no, no! There's obviously more to life here than what the hell I was thinking." And on top of that, he's seen a lot more after that, messing around and just being with me. uh my kids are they've experienced a lot of what I've experienced as well. But yeah, it was a beautiful moment, and they actually gave me, I have a wand that they gifted me. It's made out of an oak tree, and I still have it. I use it during my ceremonies only. Everything that they give to me, I use only during ceremonies. I don't really do magic like that. Like I mean, I guess I do if you think about what that is. I like to more so create my own reality, but I guess some people may consider that magic. But everything that they usually give to me, I incorporate it one way or another into my ceremonies, with the intention of, you know, what's higher, what serves the planet and humanity. But the elementals are wonderful beings. My experience with them is, to respect them, mutual. They go based on your frequency, your heart, you know. But they were very protective of me, and very protective of the children. In fact, they would keep an eye out on the children for me whenever they would play outside. And the children would see them. Sometimes they would call them butterflies. um, and then they would see other beings, then they would call them monkeys, if you know what I mean. A different elemental that dwells in the forest. And yeah, my son would go bring them apples sometimes and leave them little fruits. So We all start very early, right? But yeah, here in Puerto Rico, I've actually had the pleasure of having some encounters with some elemental as well. Um, every elemental is different, you know. They It's like everywhere where they live at, each region that you go to, they have their own distinct ways of being, you know, and their own little character traits and attributes. So it's pretty dope. Like the ones over here are very, very vibrant and alive and very colorful and festive. And what's interesting is that you can even see that within the consciousness, the collective consciousness of the island, where the spirit is just very vibrant and colorful and festive, you know, in culture. And but you have some that dwell by the coast, some that dwell, you know, inside the mountains. You have all kinds of different elementals. And yeah, they do love to dance for sure. They 100% do love to dance. Yes, especially around the full moon, especially around the night of the full moon. And they've even left, I've even found like this different type of residue that they've left behind. I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I don't know how to like, I'm gonna do my best to describe it. I don't think I've tried to like ask people what the hell is it. No one's ever been able to really tell me what it is, but sometimes they leave behind this residue that is white. It's kind of like a glittery white, and it smells like, it kind of reminds me of like asphalt. It smells like asphalt. It's very weird. And I've seen it even come like in the ground, like in different areas sometimes where they're at. So it kind of fairy dust. She said fairy dust. Dead ass. You know, it could be that. It really could be fairy dust. It could be really, really, truly, it really could. It could be fairy dust, but it wasn't really dusty. It was like goo, like fairy goo. It was like fairy goo. And actually, some of those were prints. Like, remember when I said about the footprints earlier? Some of them was like, it had the little residue of that. Cute, but weird. Like, as far as the scent. Not that it's weird. I'm not going to call them weird. No. But if you do make them little trinkets and stuff like that, whenever I did, I only used natural ingredients for them. So like oats, honey, elderberry, you know, something like that, like coconut flour if I'm gonna bake them or something. I don't ever do a ritual and a whole big thing like, oh, I'm giving you this for this. Nope, I don't do any of that. I literally just prepare little things and just put it down and leave. They know what it is. They know it's for them. But I never say this is in exchange for or this is for. No, it's just sometimes I leave little trinkets for them and sometimes they leave little trinkets for me. So it's an even exchange. And what else can I say? I don't know. Do you have any questions about it's not, no, definitely not worshiping. No, definitely not worshiping. Exactly. It's like creating that, exactly, it's that relationship. It's a relationship with another aspect of life. It's another form of life. I guess the whole purpose of this sharing is more so to share that, as we know, and some of us may not know or want to accept or may not want to accept, that there are other forms of life. There are other forms of life that exist here right now around us and even within us, even within us, you know? Um, but most importantly, there's other forms of life and there's nothing to be afraid about. there being other forms of life in existence. You know, there's so much that exists on our fingertips that we don't even see, you know, including microscopic organisms. We have to get past being afraid of things that don't look like us, beings that don't look like us. Not everybody's going to look like us. Not everything is going to look like us. Doesn't mean that it's bad. Um, Also, respecting nature, because there are other forms of life within nature that do exist. So, respecting nature and supporting nature is one great way to build a relationship or your relationship with the elementals. It builds trust, it shows character, it shows that you care about yourself, because nature is you and you are nature. It's one way to balance out your powers, which I will be speaking about. I'll be dropping a video about balance and power part 3, but that is one way, is to care for nature, to care for other forms of life. It keeps you in your heart space. And what's such a magical thing and piece of life to care for, like an elemental, most sacred, you know. So I'm gonna be ending this live. Hope you guys that catch it like it. If you do, click the thumbs up video, and stay tuned for more coming, because I have a lot more to share with the elementals, including Bigfoot, and as well as different footages and videos that I've captured of different activations that they've shared with me. But love you guys. Peace and blessings for you all. I'm out of here. I have to figure out how to end the live. Right here. Boom shakalaka.